Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Have you ever tried lifting something that you thought you could lift, but after you tried to lift it, found out that it was too heavy to lift? My favorite nephew and fellow fiduciary Wes Walker found himself in this predicament when several years ago I purchased a new commode for my mom's house. That's right, folks. Last of the big spenders buying one of the most important household items one can purchase for one's mother. Anyway, as me and Mom picked out the commode of her dreams at the local box store, two nice employees rolled the boxed commode on the dolly and into my car, and when proceeded to lift the awkward box containing this heavy throne of grace into the back of my SUV, as Mom and I watched, here's how the scene played out. On the count of three, the two nice young workers easily hoisted the large box and into the back of my vehicle as we rode off. As me and Mom were driving to her house and the commode in hand, it dawned on me that there was no way I could get the commode out of my car and into her house all by myself. So what did I do? I called on my favorite nephew and part-time bodybuilder, Wes, to meet me at Mom's house to assist in offloading this awkward box. Upon arriving at Mom's house, Wes confidently strolled over to my SUV, gave me a friendly shove to the side, and by himself reached his arms around this huge box containing Mom's prized commode, and with biceps rippling, to our amazement, picked it up by himself and walked some 20 yards back into the living room of Mom's house. But there was just one problem with this Herculean effort exhibited by my favorite nephew. It wasn't the lifting of the commode that was the issue. It was how Wes would now unload the awkward position of the box and the heavy commode and gently set it on the ground without throwing his back out. If only Wes had watched this video before trying to tackle this heavy load. As we all stared at each other and Wes still awkwardly holding on for dear life to this boxed commode, lucky for Wes, a little man in a sweater vest stepped in to save the day by assisting him in setting the box on the floor back in check. Oh, speaking of funny stories about commodes, back in my college days, I was staying at my dad's house and heard a bunch of commotion coming from the guest bathroom. When I peeked around the corner, I noticed Dad banging on the commode with a hammer and screwdriver. I asked what Dad was doing, and he said,
"I'm saving a bunch of money by changing out the commode seat instead of paying the plumber."
Seeing as though Dad was terrible at doing stuff around the house, he asked me if he should hit the screw holding the commode seat in place. Not really sure if it was a wise thing to do to start banging a porcelain commode with a ball-peen hammer, I said, "Maybe, Dad, if you just hit it one more time," to which he did, and the result was the commode shattering into pieces and water running all over the floor. About that time, Dad's wife, Sue, came into the picture and asked what in the world was going on, to which Dad replied,
"Tony just told me to hit it one more time."
Okay, so what does lifting a too heavy commode have in common with the heavy lifting you'll have to do in retirement? Well, we're getting ready to find out. Well, welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, Tony Walker. And before we share with you how we at Tony Walker Financial love doing the heavy planning issues for our clients who find themselves retired, let me introduce two young lads in the WorryFree Retirement Studios who do the heavy lifting for this show each week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, let's say you are retired or nearing retirement, and now what it would feel like is this huge burden you're filled with all of these financial worries, fears, and uncertainty that will accompany this thing called retirement. And since you are serious and have serious questions as to what to do in retirement, such as the following: when to take Social Security, whether or not you should do a Roth conversion, or maybe even how to calculate those required minimum distributions and where to take the money from to cover them. And here's another new one for retirement that you're going to have to consider somebody to help with, whether you should do something called a QCD. And then there's even the burden of whether you should give money to your kids now or give it to them later. Well, regardless of the heavy lifting in retirement that you're going to be faced with today, I've got some real good news as I come along beside you and help you pick up this load called retirement and show you how we at Tony Walker Financial can help make it a worry-free journey for you and your loved ones. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back. Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Our Tony in the Trenches comes to us from Debbie in Louisville, who asked the following. Tony, I have an annuity I purchased 7 years ago with an advisor I met at a dinner seminar. At the time, I was pleased with what he told me about the annuity, but now it has not performed as I'd hoped, and if I cash it in, there's a surrender penalty. The agent is now suggesting we move it to a new annuity, a new 10-year annuity with a 10% bonus to cover the penalty. Is this a good suggestion? Well, Debbie, there are times when it is good to cut your losses and move on. This is true whether it's a bad stock you might own, mutual funds, bonds, real estate, low-yielding CDs, and yes, sometimes there are times when you need to take the surrender hit and cancel an annuity. But in this case, with Debbie's problem here, this annuity, there is a serious problem, and that is this. If this agent takes this current annuity, which has a surrender charge, and moves it to a brand new 10-year annuity, well, it's going to start the surrender penalty all over again. So let's kind of take a look at this full screen. Aaron's going to help with this, but basically here's the situation. Debbie is 75. The current annuity is worth $120,000, but if she surrenders it, she's going to lose about $8,400. That's the penalty to get out of this annuity because it still has 3 more years. So let's just round that off to $112,000. So now the agent is recommending to overcome this penalty to take the $112,000. It's going to get a 10% bonus, which again will push it up back to around $122,000. But there's still a problem. She is going to have to start over a brand new 10-year surrender charge, and this new fixed indexed annuity, which is what it is, may not perform any better than the annuity she's not pleased with now. So as the old saying goes, she's kind of going from the frying pan right back into the fire, which makes no sense whatsoever. Derek, what is it, partner?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but did you say out of the frying pan and into the fire? I've never heard that before. What does that even mean?
Well, it's funny, Derek doesn't know what that means. I bet you know what it means, Aaron.
Oh yeah, Tony, I got this. So the phrase out of the frying pan and into the fire is used to describe the act of moving from one difficult situation to a worse one. It was made famous by one Thomas More during a debate with William Tyndale in the year 1532. Back to you, Tony.
Oh, speaking of annuities and the growing trend of those on Wall Street starting to sell them, funny how the excuse to now offer them is that advisors didn't offer them before because of the high commissions annuities paid. Now they're charging fees as if charging fees on annuities is a good thing, which it might be, but it may not be. All the more reason you need to be working with a fiduciary who knows both the investment world and the annuity world, and that's us at Tony Walker Financial. In fact, it's my suggestion, if you own an annuity or thinking about buying an annuity, why don't you download this free guide? It's called Annuities Made Easy. Just email Gina at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or you can simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Okay, today, as someone trained in the art of retirement planning, such as Tony Walker Financial, we want to handle the heavy lifting. So what are the things that you need to be aware of in retirement, things you've never had to think about before, that somebody's going to have to do the heavy lifting? So let's take a look at a few of those. The first one you're going to have to be aware of is knowing who's going to handle the investments, where they're going to invest the money, and then when they're going to make changes to those investments. In fact, in 2022 and 2023, we at Tony Walker Financial, we currently manage over $240 million with Charles Schwab. We had to move millions of dollars out of bonds and into CDs and money markets. We did all of that at our discretion at a low fee of 0.8%. So yes, we're going to maintain those investments for you. Number two, you got to have somebody to monitor the income plan. Many of you folks don't even have an income plan or a game plan. At Tony Walker Financial, we're going to do the heavy lifting. We're going to keep you on track and make sure you stay on track. And again, there's no additional cost for this service. Number three, happy to meet with you in person. Folks, as best I can, I usually have 30 to 40 appointments a week. These are in-person appointments with clients and prospective clients. Had a gentleman the other day that came in and he said, the reason I called you is because my current advisor has canceled 2 different appointments with me. I can't even get in to see my own advisor. That is not going to happen at Tony Walker Financial. Next, tax calculations. Folks, we have 2 certified tax specialists on staff. We're going to calculate your RMDs, whether it's wise to do a Roth conversion, QCD, when you're taking distributions out of our Charles Schwab accounts. We're going to calculate the taxes and withhold those taxes before we send you money. Again, a free service at Tony Walker Financial. How about this? Assists in rolling over 401ks, filling out pension paperwork. Had someone in yesterday, they've never done any of this stuff. They're getting ready to retire. The 401k is very confusing. They're not sure how much is after tax, how much is pre-tax. They got to fill out some pension paperwork and get all that notarized. So that's you right now. If you're getting ready to retire, maybe you've been laid off, offered a buyout. We do this stuff all the time, folks. We know what we're doing to handle all this paperwork at no additional cost. Well, we talk about the tax tumor all the time. I mean, how are you going to deal with that tax-infested IRA, and who's got the expertise to try to save you money on taxes? This is something, again, the planning opportunities we have, there's a bunch of them we can offer you, again, at no out-of-pocket cost. Here's another heavy lifting issue. This is happening more and more. In fact, put up this article, Aaron. We see this. Adult children are starting to come into literally hundreds of thousands of dollars as this generation that has all these 401k plans is starting to pass away. Well, who's going to help you with these inheritances and all the tax issues you might face? We can do that for you. And then finally, this last one. This is a huge issue, folks. I come into this all the time. A couple will come in. Generally, I try to identify as quickly as possible which of the 2 spouses, usually there's one that tends to handle the investments, or at least has a pretty good grasp of it. And I'm always asking that spouse that might survive, the person that feels like they know what they're doing, what are you going to do when something happens to your partner? And in many cases, they say, I have no clue. This is a huge issue. And we had to do this 55 times in 2023. We had 55 clients pass away in 2023. And folks, we're going to meet with that partner that's left to survive. We're going to make sure everything gets transferred over to them properly. We're going to make sure they have no worries when you step out. In other words, Tony Walker Financial is going to step in. So that's you right now. If you feel like, man, you are burdened with all of these issues you've got to face in retirement, you don't have someone that you feel is in your corner that really understands retirement planning, maybe they're charging you way too much in fees and doing very little to help you, we need to talk. And we made this real easy. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And to get started, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started, or you can simply call the toll-free number on your screen. All right, when we return, I'm going to get the whiteboard out. A great Tony in the Trenches about a recent video I did on Roth conversions and this idea of which asset to pay the tax to Uncle Sam when you convert to a Roth. I'll be right back. Let me get a cup of coffee here. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
The response to our latest video on Roth conversions, which, by the way, you can watch along with hundreds of other videos on our YouTube channel. Just log on to youtube.com and type in Tony Walker Financial. Anyway, led to this TNT, which is a dandy. So Ron from Lexington asked the following: Tony, you mentioned on one of your videos about Roth conversions that it is always best to pay the tax with non-performing assets such as cash or brokerage accounts that haven't made any money. Why would you not take the tax out of the IRA instead? A really good question. And to answer that, I want to go back in time. Let's go back 20 years ago, long before most advisors knew anything about this idea of a Roth conversion. Back then, I thought they were very intriguing, so I attended a conference in Boston from a so-called Roth conversion expert who recently had created some really cool software to help advisors determine the true cost of Roth conversions. Again, a Roth conversion is where you take a current tax-infested IRA, you pay the tax on it now, so that in the future, you nor your children will ever have to pay taxes on any of it again, which on the surface, who wouldn't want to do that, right? Well, there's a lot more to it than that. Anyway, during the expert's workshop, he talked about all the tax savings of the conversion and how his software displayed all these savings, while the large group in attendance was nodding their head to the affirmative. There I was in the back, though, and I raised my hand to ask about something called lost opportunity cost, or LOC, and why the tax software he was sharing did not calculate the LOC. And he responded with, "Well, what do you mean?" Obviously, now realizing that this so-called expert had no understanding of how to account for lost opportunity cost and should have read up on the subject, I grabbed my financial ball and went home. So let me explain as I flew out of Boston what I mean by lost opportunity cost and why you need to pay the tax from non-performing assets on a Roth conversion. So LOC stands for lost opportunity cost. It basically means that when you have any kind of a cost, tax, fee, whatever, insurance premiums, it doesn't matter, you not only lose the dollar on that money forever, you also lose forever the interest that dollar that you just lost could have earned forever. So let's go back to the example of Ron's question. We have $100,000 in an IRA, and let's say Ron wants to convert it to a Roth, and he can do that. And let's say that Ron is in a 30% tax bracket, okay? And let's say on average, long-term, let's just say long-term, this account's been averaging 7%. Now remember, with a Roth conversion, if you're going to do a Roth conversion, number one, you can't even use the money for 5 years, so you've got a 5-year window that you might want to take a little risk. But more importantly, some people just want to use this for estate planning. They want to leave this to the kids and grandkids when they die because it'll all be tax-free, everything, growth and everything. So it's kind of like, you're probably not going to use this Roth. So yeah, if you want to take a little more risk, you could do that. In fact, we have a growth strategy in our Charles Schwab program for this very reason, to try to have more exposure to equities to try to get more growth. But basically in this example, what Ron is saying is, why wouldn't I take the tax, that would be $30,000 in taxes you're going to have to pay right now to Uncle Sam, why wouldn't I take that there? Well, if you did that, Ron, in this case, that would only leave $70,000 in the Roth. Now think through this a minute. If in fact you could earn 7% tax-free for, let's say, 15, 20, 25 years, whenever it is you were planning on leaving this to the kids and grandkids, you just took $30,000 off the table that could have been growing at 7% tax-free. I could put a number on that, but that's probably another at least a couple $100,000 of tax-free money you're not going to leave to the kids. So what we mean by that is we want to come over and find any non-performing assets to pay the tax, okay? So surely to goodness, Ron would have $30,000 maybe in a savings account. Again, because a savings account's not going to earn long-term 6 or 7%. Maybe he has an old brokerage account, okay? I meet people all the time. I met somebody the other day that's got a stock portfolio of a couple of stocks that have just tanked. They're hardly worth anything. You could take a huge loss on those, use those for future tax deductions, and as we say, throw that bone to the government and pay the tax for that. So in summary, folks, most advisors, what I've found, they don't have a lot of training in lost opportunity costs. So remember, every financial decision you make in the future will have some sort of cost. All of them will. The key is, what can we do to create savings for you and future investments that have the least amount of cost? Because every dollar we save you is a dollar in your pocket plus the interest you could have learned. I hope that helps, and I hope that understands why we want to pay the tax from non-performing assets. Okay, speaking of burdens and lifting the load for people and helping people up, we can certainly do that for you for retirement, but I can't really promise that for life. In fact, you may be facing things right now, a burden, a struggle that's beyond anything that a human being could help with. But there is one source of help for that burden that you don't want to pass up. Good stuff coming your way. I'll actually need another cup of coffee for this. I'll be right back. Our employee spotlight shines brightly on Jennifer J.J. Jaggers. Good morning, J.J.
Good morning.
And first of all, tell us how long you've been with Tony Walker Financial, when you started.
I started with Tony Walker Financial in August of 2019.
What, time has flown.
It does.
And you've done such a great job taking on a lot of different roles, but explain to the audience right now, what is your main role at Tony Walker Financial?
So right now I am in charge of new business annuity service applications. So anybody purchasing an annuity moving forward in that area, I'll be the one helping with that.
And seeing as though in 2023, that was our last date I'm monitoring, we did almost a little over $76 million of new premium. You were responsible for a lot of that paperwork, so thank you so much.
Yes, it's a lot, but it was great. It was a great year.
And what do you enjoy most about being here?
I enjoy being I feel like I'm the finished product of all of the work that goes in prior. So your meetings with clients, the planning that goes into providing a cultivated plan for their retirement, and I feel like I get to kind of see the finished product of that. So I like being able to kind of implement what's been provided to them.
Oh, excellent answer. And we just appreciate all that you do for our clients and, of course, the valuable contributions to our organization. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 36 years, I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon. Think you'll need someone like Tony Walker Financial to help with the heavy lifting in retirement? Just imagine how much more you'll need someone else who is stronger and more capable of helping with the heavy lifting of life. You know, as I walk with God and consider the many struggles and burdens the world continues to toss my way, I'm reminded in God's Word of His desire to do the heavy lifting for us. It's really simple. When things get too heavy, just hand them over to God. Interesting that Proverbs 3:17 is a verse of Scripture that best describes my desire to take on the financial burdens of our saver clients who, in many cases, admit they are ill-equipped to navigate the complexities of a financial world and all of the decisions they're going to need to make in retirement. I've discovered over the years, and in working with thousands of savers, this: in order to be worry-free about money, you've got to have someone who can handle the heavy lifting in retirement. To me, this is a personal calling from God, whereby Paul reminds me in Galatians 6:2 that I'm not just obliged to just take care of my own stuff, but also to bear the burden of others who cannot. Romans 15:1 says it this way: it is the responsibility of believers to help those who are weak, which means If you and I have an ability to do something for others that they themselves are not equipped to do, well, we just need to do it. But Tony, you ask, how do we, who are weak, help others carry their burdens? Well, it's interesting. In 2 Corinthians 1:4, we do this because of what Christ did for us. He comforts us by taking on our burdens, and as such, gives us the strength to now comfort others. In other words, as we offload our burdens to Christ, He equips us to handle the burdens of others. This calling, I feel, to help more and more savers lighten their load in retirement is evidenced by the fact that years ago I couldn't do it on my own, but needed help, which is why, as of the date of this recording, I currently employ 19 full-time staff members to carry the load of others. I realize that in my own strength, there's only so much Tony Walker can do, and there's only so much of me to go around. But if I can employ great staff with the same passion of carrying the load for savers in retirement, well, then there's more savers we can help. So friend, assuming the worries and burdens of the world have got you down, never forget that Jesus Christ not only came to earth with a mission to save mankind, but just as importantly, He came that so you and I in the meantime could give Him our burdens to carry. And that, my friend, is some really good news you and I can take to the bank. Amen? Well, how about you? Are you tired of carrying the burdens of making sure that you have plenty of money in retirement without the fear of one day running out? Are you concerned that you are paying way too much in fees and taxes and basically not getting any help in the heavy lifting of figuring out things like your RMDs or how much money to give to your kids and whether to do it now or later, whether you can spend and enjoy more of your money now, and even if you can actually retire from work at this juncture of your life? Well, if that's you, if you're tired of doing all the heavy lifting on your own, we need to talk. My name is Tony Walker, and for nearly 40 years, I've made it my life's work to help savers worry less about money by taking on the worries for them. And to find out how we can help you do that as well, we call it the 10-minute free fiduciary phone call. Here's how easy it is to learn more about our operation. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that little red box, and we will move into action and set up that free phone call with you and I to find out more about your situation. If after talking by the phone it looks like we can help, we're going to meet in person. That's right, the owner of the company, happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So log on now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or feel free to call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show, but you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.